Okay, I have 3 petitions here.
Whoa.
They are for people who are running for state, Democrats who are running for state positions. One's Rob Richardson, one is Zach Space, he's very good, and Karen Clyde. So there are 3 of them here, and I just thought I'd pass it around, and you know how to do petitions, right? Sign the way you do when you vote, and you can just, as long as you're in Hamilton County, you can sign these. If you've already signed one, you don't need to sign another. Did I leave anything out?
What's today's date?
Today is 10/24.
Thank you.
10/24.
Okay?
I have copies of the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition report card for City of Cincinnati, or Cincinnati Public School Board. The report cards are on the front with their grades. The explanation is on the back. And we've had lots of questions about it. Some of the concerns was, well, the incumbents got very poor scores.
Yeah, they did.
Duh.
And that's because they just quoted board policy and they didn't think that maybe what they were doing was not what we the people wanted, and so they were a little shocked. So hopefully it will shock them into maybe thinking they can get reelected. So please feel free to take these, take several copies because I brought plenty along. I just wanted to tell you Robert Sturdivant, who is usually here with us, and he's the chair of the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition. He is in Christ Hospital at this time. He posted he had a blood pressure problem. It's a lot more serious than that. So he's going to be doing some rehab at Christ Hospital over the next couple of weeks. So keep him in your
He
prayers.
hasn't been watching out for his health, folks.
Yeah.
This is a warning to all of us. Take care of yourself, please. We want you back at this lunch. You belong here at this luncheon. Come every week.
But it's not the food here, okay?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Another thing that Elizabeth Holzapfel shared with me is one question that all the candidates for the Cincinnati City Council were asked about affordable housing. One question, totally nonpartisan, one question. And it's very thorough, very detailed. You see who didn't respond at all. And you see who was,
I couldn't believe that.
yeah, and it was very interesting who responded, who did not respond. Because this also came up at the Amos Forum, talking about affordable housing. And I was really surprised by those people who had no clue. So feel free to take these with you. I have plenty of them, so please share.
We also have some of the newspapers.
Women voters, question.
We still have some copies. I brought 100 copies over here. You guys must have taken a lot last week.
Pardon?
Who asked the candidates for council
David
questions?
That,
And this friend of mine who unfortunately died, but he's worked.
Maybe when Elizabeth gets here, she'll be able to tell you.
20 years.
This was a question,
And this guy wants to.
I don't see it written on
posting
here,
that he-
but it was something that she has been working on.
Mount Adams.
All right.
He did this talk at Harvard.
Dr. Laura.
Mount Adams.
Yeah, I got some
Do you have any questions?
sad news in that I've been pressed back into dental service. There is a dearth of dentists who are able to work in nursing homes. So I got a call from a company and I have to give up my Tuesdays for the, I'm sorry about this, I love coming here. My available Tuesdays until mid-January. So that is when I will be back, and I will be back twice a week to make up my lost time. All right? That's a political promise. I just want to mention that the big thing that's coming up is going to be the tax reform package coming out of the Republican Party caucuses, and there's a lot of speculation about it. I am choosing to refrain from that speculation until the actual legislation comes out, because some of the speculation doesn't make sense, and we should really be concentrating on what's being said and not on what we think is going to be said. But the real issue that is apparently coming up are the 401ks. And the problem with the reduction in the 401ks is that as far as being able to put tax-free money aside, this money is what is driving the current stock market boom. And if there is a clampdown on the 401ks right away, the stock market is sure to take a big drop. So keep that in mind with your investment portfolios. Ooh.
I think it's a due resolution.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. I'll be back.
Good luck. Dental care is really important.
If people missed it, Washington Post and 60 Minutes did a big expose on the big pharma and the Congress and connecting with the opioid crisis that we are here in Ohio suffering so badly. And this all has ramifications for issue 2. So it's yes on issue 2. And if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, come and I'll give you a card with that information, and it will have the link for the 60 Minutes show, as well as some other very interesting stuff.
Mike,
Some of you may know Jane Mayer wrote an article for the New Yorker about Pence. Anybody hear about it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. I'm now hoping that we don't get rid of Trump. Pence is awful.
Very scary.
Scary.
Very scary.
Elizabeth is passing out the questionnaire about the affordable housing. Question was asked, Elizabeth, is about where you got this.
I got this from the Northside Community Council. It was passed out there. Yeah, I got it from the Northside Community Council. It was passed out at that meeting, and I believe it shows that it was done by the Affordable Housing Coalition.
they would have a vested interest.
Yeah. So you'll see that a lot of the incumbents did not take the time to respond to it, which is kind of, I find, a little bit disturbing. So there's a lot of folks who did not answer the question, and there's a lot who did and had some good answers, but there's a lot of current folks who didn't take the time to address affordable housing in the city. So there are more of those.
More introductions, announcements.
Okay, it's all yours.
Kathy King from PROKIDS is here today with us. We are so lucky. This is an amazing organization, and she's going to tell you all about what happens. They work with the courts and the kids, but they invite you to help if you have any time. So I'm going to leave more introductions with her. It's Kathy King with 2 Ks. And
Yes, only 2. Only 2 Ks though. I had a nephew who had 3 Ks. Thank you for inviting me here today. I really appreciate it, and I really like to see this much energy in a room. I mean, while you're all banded together for certainly some of the same things that you want to make sure happen in our country, and certainly you have my support for that too. I am particularly interested, I want to get some information about the what's being passed out, because I will take it back and share it with other people too. But anyway, I want to tell you about PROKIDS, what we do, and I have some handouts. Oh, thank you. I didn't bring much with me because I really just want to talk, and then I want to see if you have questions. So I'll talk first, and then we'll have some questions, and I'll answer any that I can. So anyway, you're not hearing me. Now are you hearing me? Okay. Okay. Anyway, I am Kathy King. I have been with PROKIDS on staff since 2000, and I was a volunteer court-appointed special advocate for them before that. And before PROKIDS, I lived in North Carolina and did guardian ad litem work there. And what PROKIDS is a nonprofit organization that recruits and trains and supports community volunteers like yourselves to be a voice for our children. PROKIDS has been in existence since 1981. It was one of the first that were formed within the country of court-appointed special advocate programs. And we have been in existence ever since. We've grown substantially. At one point, we had all the children within Hamilton County that were a part of the court system, and then that was taken away and placed with someone else, and then we grew from that into a nonprofit. We don't get any money from Hamilton County. We provide a free service for the courts. We, as CASAs, as we call them, and as guardians ad litem, we advocate for the best interests of children who have been a part of the system, who actually are overseen under the jurisdiction of juvenile court. Now, these are not delinquent children. These are children who have been abused and neglected so badly that they need someone to speak up for them. That's who we are, that's what we do, and that's what we continue to do. I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. Anyway, Liz Ping is the one who asked me if I would be willing. Liz was a court-appointed special advocate for me many years ago, and she did a wonderful job. And I really, really appreciated her. We had some cases together. She also helped me form a program, the Steps to Peace program, which looks at the impact of witnessing domestic violence, the impact it has on children. So that's been in existence since 2003, and Liz was one of the people who helped me form that. So I have a passion for children. I have a passion for making sure they're okay. And everyone at PROKIDS, every staff member, every volunteer, every board member, anyone connected has the same passion. We all want to see that our vision comes to fruition, which is a safe, nurturing, what is it? And I say this all the time, so you'll have to forgive me. What the heck is our vision? No, it is a safe and nurturing home for every child. And permanent home, that's it. We want to move children from the awful chaos of the abuse that they suffer to a home where they can be permanent, hopefully with parents. If not parents, hopefully with relatives. If not relatives, then sometimes we have to go to where we terminate parental rights, and that is so hard for children. So we focus definitely on the children. But before I go on with some of the other things we do, I want to tell you about the scope of the problem here in Hamilton County. At the end of 2016, there were 3,500 plus children under the I'm sorry, I'm watching her back there, under the jurisdiction of juvenile court. These were children who had either been removed or had things happen that were so horrendous that they had to be watched by the court. Over 3,500 of them. That means in Hamilton County, if you have that many, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of other children who are also under the care of Job and Family Services. They may not have been removed from their home, but Hamilton County Job and Family Services is certainly trying to help the families get back. So we have a horrendous problem right here in Hamilton County, and it's not getting any better. More and more children already this year. We are set probably to see at least, I would say, 4,000 children under the jurisdiction of the court. And that's just huge. These are children who are basically removed from their families, or at least something has been severed. So these are our children. This is what I can't understand how this can happen, but it is a huge problem. Job and Family Services, I will tell you, I think a caseworker should have between 12 and 15 cases. The caseworkers at Job and Family Services often have over 30 and sometimes 40 cases. They are not able at this stage to do what they need to do for the children. Now we monitor and we come alongside and we perform a part of the team and we try to get the right things done. But the problem is just totally overwhelming and it just keeps pouring in. The children just keep pouring in. It is a huge problem. I wanted to let you know that it is. And I believe there is an issue on the ballot about the Children's Services Levy. I would just urge you to look at that and carefully consider it, because we do need more caseworkers. They are hiring as fast as they can. I help with the training of the caseworkers, so hopefully, we can get some things done so that these children just don't languish in care. So, PROKIDS itself, we are a nonprofit. We do not take every child. We have a staff of 14 CASA managers who are guardians ad litem. We have 253 CASA volunteers, and we are serving at this point almost 900 children, which is really over what we should be serving to. The other children are handled by the Hamilton County Public Defender Guardian Ad Litem Division, and they take as many as they can, and now we're getting other attorneys, panel attorneys, to come in and take what we can't. These children are certainly not getting what they need either, but we are doing our best to do it. The other thing we do is, since we know we cannot be hands-on with every child that needs us, we develop collaborations within the child protection system and with other agencies, so that we do trainings and we help people to understand what they need to do and try to up the level so every child gets at least part of what they need. So that's one of my roles at PROKIDS, is to be that voice out in the community, bringing the people together, doing system-wide trainings, talking at the national level, talking at the state level to try to get that support that we need. It is hard to hold this up here like this, Oh, it's okay. It's a little bit harder to hold it up here than I think. I keep letting it go down. I'm thinking, then you can't hear me, and I want to be sure. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's what PROKIDS does. That's who we are, and we have been in existence for many years, and we're going to be here for many more years, recruiting and supporting our CASAs. But I wanted to tell you about a child I have. Not every case is happy. In fact, many cases are not. But sometimes you have some good things happen, and those are the things we have to keep in our minds as we're working with these children. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of children over the years, and I've had some ups and I've had some downs. But I did want to tell you about one. His name is Cortez. And I got him, he came to PROKIDS being removed from his family when he was 10 years old. He had siblings, but Cortez is the one I want to tell you about. His siblings, some good, some bad. But anyway, he had been physically abused. It's okay. It's fine. Oh, okay. Okay, good, because it sounds like kind of funny when I hold it close. Hopefully you'll overlook how I sound and just listen to what I'm saying. I've had technical difficulties almost everywhere I've spoken in the last 2 weeks, so it's not unusual for me. But Cortez was about 10. He had been physically abused with scars remaining. He had been sexually abused. He had been emotionally abused, and he had been neglected so badly, I can't even describe how bad it was. He came as an angry, hurt little boy. And he didn't want anyone near him, not me, not anyone near him. He was so hurt and so angry. And so, we just started working with him. He was a smart little guy, too. Had a lot of potential. You could just see it in him, but through the rage. And what I kept telling him over the many years that we've spent together is that, you are reacting normally to absolutely abnormal circumstances. Your actions are what any reasonable person would do. I would tell him that over and over as he would react angrily, as he would be enraged, as he would be yelling at teachers, and with me trying to keep him in school because we know education is the way out. But over the years, I kept telling him that, and finally, when he was 16, after many years of moving from foster home to residential treatment center to residential treatment center, he finally listened to me. He said, you mean I am reacting normally? He said, I'm not crazy. He had been diagnosed with all sorts of things. I said, no, you're not crazy. You are reacting the way any person would react. I would react that way. I would do that. I would lash out. I would say awful things. I would try to push people away. He didn't want people close because he was hurt all the time. And he didn't understand that. Now, he had therapy. We worked with him. We made sure all the services were in place. But when he finally got that, that's when we started seeing the turnaround. Because he really couldn't get close to anyone. He was in over 42 placements. You cannot bond, 42 placements. You cannot bond to anyone. You cannot attach to anyone if you move all the time. But he did that because he didn't want to attach. But apparently he thought he couldn't get rid of me, so that was a little bit of an interesting thing. And no, he couldn't. He could never get rid of me. So we finally got him. He was living at 17 years old in his own apartment, riding a bicycle to school to finish high school. Now, very few foster children finish high school. Cortez was one of them. He did. Although I will tell you a little story about Cortez. At the end, about 5 weeks left, he decided he wasn't going to write a book report. He wasn't going to read the book, he wasn't going to write the report, and then therefore he wouldn't graduate. Well, his teachers loved him, so they called me. I had been all over Ohio in every school possible fighting for this kid so they wouldn't throw him out. And so she said, you've got to come up here and you've got to talk to him, so I did. He said, oh, fine, I'll just write the report. I'll just graduate. I thought, that's all I want. That's all I want. Just write the report. What do you want me to do? I would have written it for him at that, just to get him out of high school. Well, he went on to college, and Wilmington College was where he went. And again, he was even out of the system at some point, but he would call me, and I would go up, because he would get himself wrapped around everything and want to quit, and I'd be going up and saying, no, you can't, because you have so much potential, Cortez. You just have so much potential. Well, he ended up being president of the students there at Wilmington, and he sings beautifully. I wish I could bring him down here so he could sing for you. He sings beautifully. He was in dramas and plays, and he acts, and, just an incredibly talented person. And so he graduated from Wilmington College. I thought, oh, wow. Only a small percentage of foster children graduate from college. Only a very small percentage. I can't even remember what it was. I didn't even want to look at that because I didn't want to even think about it. So he graduated, he struggled a bit, but then he decided to get his master's degree at Eastern University. So he went up and he worked. He got his master's degree. Surprise the heck, there's not even any statistics on foster care children getting master's degrees. But now he is the Inclusion and Diversity Director for a college here in Ohio. Yeah. I spent many nights crying over him. He spent many nights, I know, But what I want to say is for every Cortez who makes it, there are thousands of children who don't. They need a voice. They need people, not just to be CASA volunteers, not just to do, for the money, not just volunteers, but people who take their stories and tell other people about them. Here's a group of children that need voices. They need us to be their voices. And I think that's what I see when I talk to people. If you can just talk about that there are children in this town, in Hamilton County, that need us so desperately. For every Cortez, there's probably 100 that don't make it or more here in Hamilton County. And I've had some of that 100 too, it's heartbreaking. But I do have another girl who did the same thing, and she has 2 master's degrees now, so I'm thinking, something PROKIDS is doing is working, some of it is working. Unfortunately, I also have some that went to prison, and I have some in DYS, so it's not perfect. But I did want to tell you about that, and just tell you what you can do. if you just talk about these kids, if you can help us get the money so that they have enough support at the county level, if you can talk to people about looking closely at what's on the ballot. I know there's other things on the ballot, and believe me, I am well versed on most of those other things, but this is my heart. I want these children to get what they need. But it takes a committed community, and I'm hoping in some way that you will be part of our committed community and help us raise that level for the children and get every child in this community what they need. So anyway, thank you for having me here, and yes, I'll take questions.
Ellen? All right. So, thank you for your work. Thank you for serving our children.
You're
I could
welcome.
cry.
I love it. I love it.
Now, Kathy, I don't know what you do. What do you do on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? Also, I don't know whether you're an attorney,
I'm
a
not.
social worker, or what. Okay, that's interesting. Are you a social worker? Is that the deal?
No.
Well, anyway, what do you actually do on an average day for these children? What happens? Oh, an average day.
No, those are great questions. No, that's exactly what I want to talk about. When I first started, I'll go back to the beginning. I am not an attorney. You don't have to be an attorney in the state of Ohio to be a guardian ad litem, and I am a guardian ad litem. I'm also a CASA manager. I manage CASAs. I'm the professional development director and also manage the training and the system-wide training. Oh, CASA, court-appointed special advocate. It should be on that thing you got. It's they're appointed by the court to advocate for the best interests of the children, which is part of the Ohio Revised Code law that we have to have someone advocating for the children. If not a guardian ad litem, then at least a court-appointed special advocate. And if one exists, if a court-appointed special advocate exists, that person is the one that has to be appointed. They're so important. Let me just tell you why they're important, then I'll get to an average day. But the court-appointed special advocates are so important because they're volunteers. They only take 1 or 2 cases, and they have time to look at what these children need, and then to come to court, and then to present to the court what the children need so we can get the orders in place to give them the services, the placements, whatever they need. A typical day in the life of a guardian ad litem or a CASA manager means I had about 30 CASAs that I supervised and supported and went to court with them, helped them out whenever I needed, went to visits with them, and I always carry a portion of the cases just for me because, well, with Cortez, unfortunately, after about the 3rd CASA, no one would take him because he was moving so much, so I just kept him at that point, and that happens a lot. So we talk to schools, we talk to therapists, we talk to Job and Family Services, we talk to everyone who's involved in the child's life, and we formulate court reports, we present them to the court, we go to court, and we advocate for whatever it is. If they need therapy, if they need a different placement, if we're thinking of reunifying, whatever it is that child needs, that's what we do day in, day out. The CASAs are the ones that we always want to CASA on a case if we can have one. But if you don't, you're still doing the same thing and you're still supporting that CASA and whatever they want. So did that answer a little bit of it? Okay. Yes?
Hi. This is wonderful what you're doing, but I want to put it in a sense negatively. What's the minimum commitment in a given week that one would need to make to be useful?
To be useful?
And what would that person do in the hours or whatever that they're committing?
Yeah, thank you.
That's a good question. If you're going to be a CASA volunteer, a court-appointed special advocate, we say it takes about 4 hours per week to really do what you need to do in the case. Now, some weeks can be more, some weeks can be less, and it depends on the case. But what you would do, and most of the time you can make a lot of things can be done via email. Not visiting the child, you have to visit them in person. But gathering information can be done via email, via phone calls, so you don't have to be running all over the place. We ask that you go to a court hearing once every 3 to 6 months to advocate for the child. That takes, usually in a typical case, if it's not in trial or something, maybe a couple of hours. There are meetings, semi-annual meetings at Job and Family Services that we would ask the CASAs to go to if they could. Now, we'll cover when you can't. I mean, we let you go on vacation, really, because, you know, the pay is so good. But we would cover for you. Your CASA manager would cover for you if you couldn't. So it averages out to about 4 hours a week. It's not a huge commitment, but it is a commitment, and there are other ways you can commit to. Yeah, after he gets finished, yes.
All of us can be helpful to these kids because what really causes the most damage isn't what happens to them, but what they make of it. What do you think he was saying to himself about himself when he was 12 years old? And is it true? But if you can help them change their thinking about themselves, that will really help a lot too.
Oh, absolutely. He hated himself. He blamed himself for the abuse that occurred to him. He blamed himself that every one of his family was taken into care. It was just this constant negative blaming that went on, and it, you know, we would talk about it, he would talk about it in therapy, we worked through that, but I think it's just like anything else. When you experience that level of trauma, the huge trauma that these children come in with, it's very hard to change that mindset. And what it takes is not as much as you think. When our CASA volunteers, we only require that you visit once a month. You would think that wouldn't be enough, but it is, because you build up over time. They count on you. They know that they can get in touch with you. They know if something is needed, you'll be there for them. You'll make the phone calls that they need to make. So it's really, and it takes time. You have to believe in them. I had to see him as a person that had this huge potential. And every one of our kids, no matter what, we always start out saying, the potential is there if we can just nurture it. It doesn't work in every case, but I think it's the time commitment, not the time commitment every week, but the time commitment of over the years, just encourage it. Did that answer kind of what you were asking?
No, I was just making a statement.
And I think that's a great statement. Okay.
I was at CASA, as Kathy said, with her. This lady is incredible. All these women who are and men who are working with PROKIDS are absolutely incredible people. They put their hearts and souls into this. They put in way more time than they get paid for. The CASAs, there are some that have stuck with it for years. They stay in touch with these kids after they leave, still continuing to help them in their lives. Is there anybody who only does 4 hours a week and visits once a month? The thing is, these kids draw you in. I mean, I had a brother and a sister from a family. They were the youngest. How many kids were in the family?
Actually, there were a total of 13. We didn't have all of them.
Okay, most of them came through PROKIDS at one point, though, or another. And the reason I got into it was because I had heard about the little boy who had been closed in the closet, and I remember that story years ago.
Marcus Feisel.
Yeah, and he'd been thrown in the river or whatever, and I had just retired, and I was looking for things to do, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. This is great. It was really a challenge. It was wonderful. You get all kinds of training, which I love, and they help you every step of the way. My favorite story is when I was bringing, I can use a person name, right? Stephanie. I was bringing Stephanie home from something, and all at once she went off on me. I mean, she called me everything but white. And I'm sitting there going, holy crap, what do I do now? I had never had an adult talk to me like that, much less a child. So I get her home, and immediately I get on my cell phone, Kathy, I just got yelled at. And she goes, Oh, yeah, they do that all the time. Don't worry about it. You'll get thick skin. So, and they're not all like that. Her brother was very quiet, very, you had to draw him out. He ended up going back to live with a brother, an older brother, which was awesome. And then Stephanie actually did graduate from high school and got her own apartment and got a job, and I don't know what happened to her from there because I'm not one of those people who stays in touch. So I'm not as good a CASA as some people. But anyway, that's just an idea of what the CASAs do. I went to court to make sure that she got, if she needed counseling, anything that you think is falling through the cracks. That's what you step up to make sure that if you need to talk to the JFS people, but you have a supervisor, a manager, who, these people take care of you, trust me. They value you so much that whatever you need, they supply, except paid vacations.
We do allow you to go on vacation, but we don't have paid vacations.
I'm just wondering, do Big Brother and Big Sister still exist, and are they making a difference, and do you coordinate with them in some ways?
They do exist. I think they're wonderful people. We try to get our children into them. There's a waiting list most of the time with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, so it takes time to get them in. But yes, I don't know that we coordinate, but we know them. In fact, I presented to them a couple of times. We know them, and we try to get our kids covered by them too. They're wonderful. They're an incredible organization too. Are you affiliated with them?
When I was younger, I wasn't actually a Big Brother. I was too young. But my brother-in-law was a Big Brother, and his little brother was my age. So I ended up becoming essentially part of the program. Yeah, it was great.
Well, it's a great program. Okay, others?
I don't know if you mentioned this. I don't know if you mentioned this or not. How did you first find the children? How did they first come to PROKIDS?
Oh, I can tell you that. That's a good question. No, I didn't say it, so that's a good question. When children, let's see, how to explain it. The court appoints us. The children, there are complaints and motions filed, and then it goes before the magistrates at the court, and then the court appoints us. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. It's a little bit more complicated.
What does it take for a kid to get shoveled to PROKIDS?
We take certain they're called day ones, where we take all the cases on that day, and sometimes we get referrals from magistrates that they want us to take a particular case. Our problem is we're limited on how many we can take.
I think she means, how did they end up in court in the first place?
No.
No.
Which of the many kids
That's what
How do they determine which kids?
It's-
Why?
it's
Is it random?
It's random.
Oh,
It's random, and some of the magistrates, though, there are certain cases that they will refer to us, just because they know we can spend the time on them. That's not taking away from what the other people do, believe me, but they will refer. But mostly it's random. Did you want to ask a question based on what you said, or? Okay.
I'm just curious, how did Contact get his financing for higher education? I mean, Williamson's a pretty pricey school. How was he able to do that?
Oh, this is a hard question. He took out loans. Of course, he qualified for grants because he was a foster child, so there's grant money coming in that way. But he took out many student loans. And there have been people that kind of adopted him along the way. We have some people here in town who had some really good financial means that have helped him pay off some of those loans. And he became kind of part of their family too. He's part of PROKIDS family, but he is part of their family too, which is wonderful. He's building his family, and he's building his friendships, based on that. So, but that's a good question. No, he took out way too many loans. No. We didn't like that. Anything else? I can't have answered all your questions, but we have a website if you want any more information, and certainly Liz knows how to get in touch with me, so.
Oh, yeah, I've got it on for you.
Thank you.
Martha, did you have one more question?
Yes, I just, what you just said made me think that I would think the difficulty with the CASAs, often at least, would be that you know what is needed, but you don't know how to get it for them.
That is a very good question, but I will tell you, our CASAs are amazing. If there is something out there in the community that can help these children, they find it. They tell us all the time. I know very little about what's going on, but the CASAs come back and say, do you know about this program? Well, no. And that's what happens. They are amazing people. We do keep in touch with everyone. I have collaborations with almost all the agencies across town, and so we do know what's out there, and we do provide that for our CASAs too, but they come back with some things I wouldn't have even thought of. That's what I like about them.
Actually, I have seen them. I have actually seen them come into the office and say, I have a CASA kid, he has to go to a new foster home, they don't have a bed for him, can we get a bed? And everybody go to work to get a bed for this, and a dresser, and sheets, and a mattress. I mean, these people pull together like you would not believe. And they do it. They pull everything together, and they are incredible. I just can't tell you how much I was so impressed with these people. And I got out of it because I ran for office. So
Yeah.
I stopped
Yeah,
doing
I
that.
hated when she left, but I was hoping she would, that was great. And I did. I will say, when you have, we're closing in on 300 volunteers, I think we will be this year. And that's an amazing force. I mean, when you have that many people speaking up for children, you're right. I mean, everyone will come together, and if something is needed, we just put it out to the CASAs and the staff and everything, and within hours you have an answer. We have PROKIDS young professionals who, they don't want to be CASAs, but if there's a need for our children, they find it, they contribute. So we just have different ways that people do it. It is amazing.
They give you warm fuzzies.
Yeah, I miss Liz when she left.
Here we go.
So what's the age range of the kids that you serve? Is it from infants up, or is it like teenagers and up?
Thank God we don't all have time. I mean, the teenagers are fun, but oh my goodness, they're a problem. We serve from 0 through, I still have children that are probably 20, 21. We keep them as long as we can to try to help them get started. All age ranges. And the teenagers are all lovely. If you all want to come serve our teenagers, they're lovely. Traumatized teens. Think of normal teens and then add trauma on top of that. Yeah. I love them. Don't.
Do classes ever get together and have a class picnic?
Oh yes, we get together. We love to get together. CASAs love to talk about things. So we have several things that we do. We do happy hours now, not so much picnics. We do happy hours. You don't have to drink to come to the happy hours, but they come. It helps. Then we call the fall fling, where we try to bring them all together and, honor the CASAs. We have team meetings, like specific CASA managers. I'll get all my CASAs together so they can talk about their cases, because that's all they want to talk about. They don't want to talk about anything else. They just want to talk about their kids and what's going on with them. So we try to provide as much as we can. It's a lonely volunteer position. You're out there by yourself. Liz can tell you, you're out there by yourself, except, with certainly support. Sometimes you get yelled at, like poor Liz did. And sometimes caseworkers will yell at you too, You've been yelled at by a few magistrates. But no, it's fun. Well, it is fun. I enjoy it. I love it. It's my passion, and I think it was Liz's passion too. Good.
So many of you have said that through this organization you want to do something positive. And one of the things we hope to do as the Greater Cincinnati Democrats is to provide you opportunities to do good in the community, and this is certainly one of them. If you have a need for this. I have to tell you, I volunteered to help a young woman that was at my school. It wasn't through CASA, and we provided sheets and pillows and for this young woman who had an apartment that was given to her. She was going to have to pay for it herself, but she was given this empty apartment. She moved in that night and didn't know what to do, so she called me, her teacher. And we went over in the middle of the night and gave her stuff to sleep on. My brothers and I were witnesses for her getting married and gave presents to her babies. And then her husband abused her, and she moved back with her mother, who had abused her also. And she left and she left very angry with me because I didn't have one of the things that happened when she had this empty apartment was a friend of mine died. Some of you know, a friend of mine died, and he had a truck, and we gave his furniture to her. You know, it was one of those things where we were helping this young woman, and she says, I've got to move back to Kansas, and I don't have a truck. And I said, we don't have a truck either. It died, and that was years ago. And we couldn't help her, and she wouldn't talk to us ever since. I mean, I feel like that. But we tried, you understand? And I think she was better off for having my family help her. And
She was definitely better off. I am sorry that it ended that way, but I think over the years I've had children who didn't appreciate what we did, didn't appreciate it, left angry, but I think you've planted seeds, and you have to hold on to that. You planted seeds with them, and those come to fruition later. I really believe that. I couldn't keep doing this if I didn't believe that, but I honor you for what you did for them.
I have to convince my brothers to let me do it again. I'm ready. I'm ready. I hate to leave you people in suspense. Do you want to hear my story about she kills bugs indiscriminately? For me, this was a very poignant piece in my Peace Corps training. How can I describe to you? We were in an old schoolhouse. We were 9 married couples separated by curtains, shower curtains. When somebody would down the line would sneeze, and everybody would go, "Gesundheit, God bless you." This is on a sugar plantation on the big island of Hawaii, just outside of Hilo, the very rainy part. And my former husband and I were the 3rd oldest married couple. One couple had been married 4 years. One couple had been married 3 months. We had been married 3 weeks, and we were the 3rd oldest married couple. I want you to imagine that. And at this reunion, I have to tell you, one of the men came without, one of the married men came without his wife, and he came with a special message to me from 50 years ago. His wife was newly on birth control pills at the time, and I comforted her because, I don't know if you remember, 50 years ago, birth control pills were really very strong and all kinds of side effects. And I reassured and comforted her, and over the 50 years, this woman reached out to me to thank me for helping her through, working through the symptoms. Anyway, with the background. Okay. So they were going to have us be teachers, and I was going to be a teacher of science, which was fine because I've always been a teacher of science and will always be a teacher of science. And one of the things we did was to have practice teaching through the University of Hawaii. But our practice teaching, unlike practice teaching here on the mainland, instead of being 1 semester or full time, it was 1 hour a day for 5 weeks. And that went down on my on my, it followed me for the rest of my teaching career, that I had practiced teaching through the University of Hawaii. I didn't have to do it anymore. But my lesson was going to be on insects. I had just completed at Rutgers University a course in 6 credits in entomology, and I knew the difference between 6-legged insects and 8-legged and multi-legged centipedes and millipedes that they had on it. They had bugs on this island. I'm going to tell you, in the sugar cane, it was incredible. And I thought it would be really neat for me to do this lesson on how they named insects as part of my life. So I made an insect collection. And I think I had 3 cigar boxes filled with insects for the kids to look at so that I could have real examples. That was the whole point, you know. Here you have these wonderful insects on this island. And overnight, the night before my lesson, the insects ate all my insects. They were gone. Every bug had remnants left on the little pins that I had put in them. So I made a second insect collection. And about that time, there was a midterm evaluation. Now this is Peace Corps, as they were just getting started. It was 1967, they had just started in 62. So they were still getting their legs on in terms of what they do. And part of this evaluation for the midterm of our training, 12 weeks on Hawaii, was name the 5 best volunteers. Now that wasn't bad. Your friends, the people who smiled a lot, people you knew were good teachers. And then they said, name the 5 worst volunteers.
Oh, no.
And all of us were, we were 22. We've been married 3 weeks. We were, practically virgins out there. I mean, really, we were really inexperienced. We had no sophistication. We answered the question. Only 2 people that I know of out of over 100 volunteers did not answer. And they were the minister who had been married 4 years. They were just more sophisticated. They knew how to answer. What we didn't know was that they deselected people on the so people who were mentioned too often overnight were packed up and whisked away. And I still have memories of this woman crying across the campus as she was carrying her suitcase away, being flown out of Hawaii because too many people had said she was going to be one of the worst volunteers.
It's all your fault.
Again.
I have to tell you, this hangs heavy on my heart. Seriously, all of us who went through this, and they stopped doing that later, of course, because some of us gave them such a negative and violent, feedback. But nonetheless, it happened. And after this evaluation, the counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists who were following us pulled us in for an evaluation conference. And my husband got rave reviews because he was a wonderful teacher. And they said, Alberta, you have been named one of the worst volunteers because, quote, she kills bugs indiscriminately, unquote. And the counselor said, we have looked over this statement and we cannot understand what it means. She said, well, if you're in the Philippines with a lot of bugs, do you want to be with a volunteer who kills bugs? That might be a really good thing. This will be wonderful. On the other hand, is she on the psychotic road from small insects to puppies, goats and small children? Is she on the road to being this murderous adult? And he said, we're just laughing it off, forget it, it's okay. But a year later, on the island of Cebu, we had many beers with the country director, and he said, when when you first came off the airplane from Hawaii, we went from the end of the alphabet. I was at the end of the alphabet then. I like being an H in the middle. It's much better, let me tell you. But I was at the end of the alphabet. He said, we took you first because I wanted to know about this statement that came on your paragraph from the official government evaluation that we have from you, from the Philippines. And it ends, she kills bugs indiscriminately. Now, I didn't know that we had this paragraph that followed us from training that is in my government record today. No, I don't have a t-shirt. But somewhere in my government record it says, you can quote with me, she kills bugs indiscriminately. And folks, what does it mean? It means I give out shelled ladies when I get back from Hawaii. Because I think I have to smile about it, but I want you to know it brings back those terrible times too at the middle of the island when those people were sent home. And I have to tell you, that was the most poignant moment for me and for many of us at this reunion that I was at this week, where we told stories about what our Peace Corps experience and our experience in the Philippines, and that was my story, and I have shared it with you. Thank you. And at this point, it is now 1 o'clock, and we have to make sure that you take all the food. Thank you very much again to Kathy King for being with us today. I hope you've had a good time. If you didn't get a necklace, please see me. I want to kiss you.
Next week, Alberta.
I have a little announcement I forgot to make, but the PROKIDS thing reminded me. Tonight at 7 o'clock at First Unitarian Church, there's going to be a training session open to everybody on suicide prevention. And if that's of interest to you, tonight at 7 o'clock, St. John's, that's on Lincoln, right off of Reading Road.
And speaking of trainings, on Wednesday night, the SPAN Ohio, the Single Payer Action Network, is having a training at the Clifton Branch Library at 12:30, and there's free lunch at 12:15, or the training starts at 1 and the free lunch starts at 12:15. And that's training to understand what single payer is and how to advocate for it and speak about it.
What day is that?
Wednesday this week.
What is
Single payer is Medicare for everybody.
Okay, I know, I heard single payer. I heard single payer, I thought.
Like Apple? It's an interesting concept, single payer.
I was trying to get my head.
Alberta, what's next week?